So we are back to talk to keep talking about Brexit and how this affects American-European relations in a sense. Two things. Well, only one thing. One important thing. Jeremy Corbyn. Oh my God, that's the name of the leader of the Labour Party during all this time. So let's go back to continue with the events of Brexit and how it developed. On the 24th, David Cameron resigned after knowing the results. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Actually, his resignation was a result of, he was a leader, the prime minister that campaigned to remain, and actually people voted leave. So did not feel legitimized to lead the country to that result. So he resigned the same day that he knew the results. And the Conservative Party elected Theresa May, another Remainer, as new prime minister in July 2016. It took quite some time to trigger Article 50. Article 50 is an article of the Treaty of the European Union that allows a member state to leave. And that will open a transition period of 2 years to negotiate that apart, so to say. In what terms is that country going to leave the European Union? Because it does not happen from one day to another. You know that actually there's a lot of European legislation that actually affects member states, and also, countries have responsibilities within the European Union. So that took place in March 29th, 2017. So that meant actually that March 29th, 2019, the UK and the European Union will part ways. What was the first stick on that wheel, so to say? What was the first problem in all this process? Actually, after this was brought to the courts in the United Kingdom, 3 judges decided that actually any agreement that the government of the UK will reach with the European Union will have to be voted in Parliament. And you see how actually these judges were framed as enemies of the people. Why? Because this will make delivering Brexit harder. First agreement was actually reached. It was actually reached 2019. It was January 2019, so a bit more than a year ago. This was very difficult. It was very last minute. Actually, during the first year, nothing was advanced. During the second year, we kind of agreed on the terms. What were the controversial issues? First thing, the financial settlement between 35 and 39 billion pounds that the UK will have to pay to the European Union for living. Second, the recognition of rights and how residency was going to be given to those UK nationals living in the European Union and those European Union nationals living in the UK. And the trickiest one, actually, the Irish border. Good Friday Agreement that eliminated the Buha border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, finishing that conflict. That we know about that, and they agreed on a backstop as a temporary solution. This meant actually that the Northern Ireland will remain within the single market, and there will be a backstop between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. And this way, there will be no hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. However, what happened at this agreement that the UK government, that Theresa May government reached with the European Union was rejected in Parliament. And you see, front pages of the Sun are always amazing, makes Brexit deal dead as a dodo. And so what happened from here? The UK, because of not being able to deliver that agreement before March 2019, they had to ask for an extension, and they got an extension up until October 31st, 2019. As a result of that, Theresa May resigns. Obviously, these videos are worth watching. If we were in class right now, I'll be showing you these speeches of Theresa May and how she delivered a speech where she announced she was resigning, that she could not actually provide Parliament with an agreement that they could vote for. And Theresa May resigned, and someone else came to the scene, and someone that I'm sure you know already, and that's Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, summer 2019, last summer, he was elected by the members of his party, of the Conservative Party, as leader of the party, and that meant also as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And Boris Johnson, I mean, watch videos of him. If you don't know him enough, go on YouTube and watch his videos. And I mean, if this was not so serious, you will have a good laugh about Boris Johnson himself. I mean, he's actually quite a good speaker. And actually, you can see the physical resemblance with Donald Trump. So Boris Johnson, first thing he tried was to suspend Parliament, to try to reach an agreement with the European Union without the pressure of Parliament at home. Actually, the courts declared this unlawful, and this was the first step back in Boris Johnson's effort to bring home agreement that could be passed and voted by Parliament. And you see, actually, these got pretty nasty in the UK and by some tabloids. But eventually, Boris Johnson does reach an agreement with the European Union. Very little changes between Theresa May agreement and Boris Johnson agreement. Main difference will be actually about labor rights and which rights will be automatically recognized and not to those who have been living until to those residents on both sides. But in the biggest part, the agreement remained the same. And it was agreed that, that if voted, there will be a transition period up until December 2020, so December this year, that could be extended 1 or 2 years. And right now, because of all the crisis we're going through, it's quite likely it's going to be extended. What does this transition period mean? This means that actually during this time, European legislation is still in place in the United Kingdom, same rights, de facto is a member of the European Union without any rights and without any participation in the institutions. And that's it about it. And yeah, the average board are pretty much the same, that eventually they will find a solution. But by the end of the day, if there's any wood traveling, for example, from Liverpool to Belfast, by the end of the day in Belfast, when it arrives, they will have to fulfill EU trade regulations and the other way around. I mean, when they leave Belfast, the same. So by the end of the day, there's a backstop between the rest of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. So this deal between Boris Johnson government and the European Union and the Commission, Mr. Barnier, who was the lead negotiator of the European Union regarding Brexit, was actually voted for Parliament. However, it was delayed. It was actually, they agreed on in the text on the agreement, but they voted against the time frame that Boris Johnson proposed. So what did Boris Johnson do? I actually called for elections in the United Kingdom, and actually he got a majority in Parliament that allowed him to properly deliver and actually to pass the agreement he had got with the European Union. So this meant actually that the United Kingdom effectively left the European Union by the end of January 2020. I think this is something we mentioned in class. So what were the actors' position during this whole period? Who you see there is Charles Michel, who is now president of the European Council. You know that the institutions where member states are represented by prime ministers and presidents of government. And the European Union obviously has always tried to have a very neutral position, so to say, however, deterring other member states from following the same path that the United Kingdom was following. The European Union followed different alternatives, offered different alternatives to the United Kingdom and to what the relation was going to be. And actually that relation is what we have to decide now in the transition period, but still never know. I mean, this is a never-ending story. In terms of member states, actually, we saw different positions between France and Germany. Germany tried to slow down in kind of trying to maintain the United Kingdom and try to convince, so to say, the United Kingdom to remain in the European Union, while France was pushing to Brexit. During a long period of time of this process, we talked about a hard Brexit. Hard Brexit will have meant actually the United Kingdom leaving the European Union without any kind of agreement. And France and Emmanuel Macron was quite happy with that idea, and he understood that that will be a kind of a deterrence to other member states that could want to follow the same path. For example, Poland or Hungary, that we have talked a lot about them in class. Interesting. How was the reaction of different administrations? Because all this started with Obama being president of the United States, the referendum. I mean, we were still in 2016 when the United Kingdom decided to leave in a referendum. And Obama actually, before the referendum, he said that actually that it was not a good idea, that the United Kingdom will be stronger within the European Union than leaving. And you've read about Donald Trump and Donald Trump tweets regarding Brexit and criticizing the European Union because of the position with the in the negotiation with the United Kingdom. And actually, right now, the relation between Boris Johnson and Donald Trump is quite an interesting one. And it's going to be quite interesting how does this develop once that effectively the United Kingdom leaves the European Union. Right now, I mean, they're not participating in any institution anymore, but still they're in the process of leaving. They will have to negotiate free trade agreements and so on. And that's going to be interesting whether they're going to do it with the current administration or whether after the elections in the US there will be a different one, and how is that going to affect the role of the United Kingdom in the world, and also how the European Union and the US relate to each other. But yeah, this was about it, about Brexit. I mean, this is a topic that we could be talking for ages. I had to cut it down a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week. And on Monday, we're going to be talking about, I think it's migration and refugee crisis. So quite an interesting class. Have a nice weekend and see ya.